All right. What is up, traders? It's Shane here with Futures IO. I'm coming to you from live from beautiful Lake Salamone in Indiana, and we're streaming across the globe today. This is our 424th webinar event, and we're pleased that you could join us today. As traders, we all know that the internet is full of scams and people waiting to take advantage of you. It can be difficult to find quality education and information. What makes Futures IO different? One answer is the community. The people here are real traders, and they come from all across the world. They range from complete beginners to all the way up to seasoned professionals and everything in between. No matter where you are at in your trading journey, you'll find someone that can help you or somebody that you can help. Our community fosters this type of positive environment, so please join us. What else? Webinars. Our YouTube channel has over 400 educational videos covering every imaginable topic, all free to the public. Check it out when you get a chance. And while you're there, you can do us a really big favor by hitting the like button, share it with your trading friends, and definitely subscribe for all the latest updates. On social media, you can follow us on Facebook, and we are active on Twitter at FuturesIO. All right. Today, we've got an event with our friends over at Earn to Trade. Lead Education Coordinator Chris Gray is in the house. He's been an active futures forex and options trader for over 15 years, and he shares that experience as both a coach and a mentor. Today, Chris is bringing it with a tough topic. I think that every trader has to face at some point in their career, the cold hard truth, and maybe I'm not good enough. After the presentation, we're going to have a Q&A session with Chris, who will be glad to answer any questions that you may have. If you look on your Zoom control bar, you'll see a Q&A button. If you hit that, you can view other questions, you can upvote them, and you can ask your own. And as always, the event's being recorded. It'll be posted on the Futures IO website and YouTube within 24 to 48 hours. Any questions we don't get to will be posted on the webinar thread where we can all continue the conversation. All right, I think we're ready to get rolling here. Chris, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you. I appreciate the introduction.
Right on. Hey, so I got to ask, you've had a pretty lengthy and successful career in trading. How many times have you personally had to face the cold, hard truth?
Quite often, probably more than most traders are willing to admit. But I think the first 3 to 4 years, realistically, of my trading career were a continuous kind of tumultuous, just this perpetual cycle of, am I good enough? Am I not good enough? Today I'm a king. Yesterday, I was a peasant. What am I? So it's just one of those things where it's a very taboo topic for some reason, though, and a lot of forums don't like it. So I appreciate futures, being as transparent, Futures IO, that is, being as transparent as they are, and allowing us to, speak and be real people, real traders to real traders. I think that's invaluable. I think that's important. So I appreciate you guys letting me, share this type of subject.
I think it's fantastic, man. Well, anytime you're ready to begin, you can take over, and she's all yours.
Excellent. Let me go ahead and switch on over here to the screen share. All right, screen sharing?
Yeah, looking good.
Okay, good stuff. So first and foremost, everybody that's joining us today, welcome. Appreciate you guys, coming in on this wonderful afternoon here to have a chat about something that at first you're probably a little bit skeptical about. You might have been wondering, what in the world is this guy going to talk to you? And I'll tell you what I'm not going to do. We'll start with that. I'm not going to peddle you bullshit. Excuse my language. I'm not going to peddle you a trading strategy that you're going to try somewhere down the line, potentially fail, and and then be angry or wonder if it was because of you or because of something I said incorrectly. But what I am going to do is I'm going to focus on something that I think is the most valuable tune that a trader can adjust. The most valuable aspect of any trader's career isn't necessarily their trading strategy. Instead, it's what's up here. It's what's in the mind. It's the health of the mind. It's the mental aspect behind things. I've always been a big component, maybe you've heard some of my speeches in the past, of the psychology that goes behind trading, because I do believe that is 80% of the battle. And now that's just a hypothetical percentage, but it's probably, if it could be quantified, it's probably more than that. And I think that paying attention to leveraged activities, what is the least amount of effort we can change to receive the largest amount of output on the other side? As traders, we are trying to continuously get more money out of the machine. We want to find a position, and we want to be right about which way it's going, and we look to monopolize on that, or to monetize that, I should say. We're looking to take advantage of that, so we're always inherently trying to do these leverage activities. We're trying to trade from home, we're trying to execute in a way where we can give ourselves these lives. But a lot of people don't focus on the mental aspect. They don't focus on how to actually self assess, how to actually get there. Instead, they focus too much on the literal process. So what I wanted to talk about is how to know if you are currently struggling. And that's the first step to getting better. And before we go any further, don't think that this is a presentation to just, make you feel like all your dreams are crushed, and maybe you're just not good enough and you'll never be good enough. It is possible, of course, that you fall in that category, but I'm a firm believer that it comes down to just finding a way to relate the information to your brain in a correct manner. And everybody is different. And that's something that I've gained through the years of mentoring traders from all different walks of life, that the best success that I've found is by finding a way to relate something to them that makes sense. You want it to make sense. And what we really want to make sense is that aspect of critical thinking about the journey that you're on as a trader, and the way that you can get an idea, an evaluation of where you're currently at, where you want to go, and where you're trying to go. And in the trading world, I'll go ahead and switch over here. In the trading world, the first aspect that really impacts people is my old friend Sheldon here. This is fear. So fear is something that impacts all of us. It impacts everyone, whether they think they're just this alpha man, rah rah macho trader or not. Fear is the aspect of wondering, should I get into the trade? It's very volatile right now. I'm not so comfortable with this, or maybe I feel I need to get into the trade because if I don't, then it's going to go up another 30, 40 points and I'm going to miss out on that opportunity. So it can manifest itself in the aspect of missing out on equity because you're not executing, and it can manifest itself in the form of getting in when you shouldn't be getting in because of the FOMO, which all of us have heard 100 times over. And fear is something that is a important self-recognition stage in deciding if you're currently not good enough. And I say currently because, once again, I'm a firm believer that you could teach a monkey to trade if you had enough time with it and you found a way to relate the information. Maybe it takes 20 years to teach a monkey, but hopefully, all of you out here that are currently watching will be able to outperform the monkey, and I have full faith that you will. The trick is trying to find a way to relate this type of information to where you're recognizing it, you're considering it, and you're critically thinking as you're going through that trading process without having all kinds of uncomfortable, almost like obtuse feelings about, fear. We don't want that. We want you to healthfully analyze and be able to recognize that as you're analyzing your particular trade setup. Maybe you're trading in a scalping manner, maybe you're just looking to get in for a swing position, but we want you to be able to focus on the fact that you can quickly recognize if fear is influencing you and to what degree fear is influencing you. So the first step to kind of asking yourself and trying to decide if you're currently struggling in an area and how can you improve it is identifying how much fear is currently impacting your trading. That's generally the first impact that most traders have in the beginning of their trading career, and that's why it's the first process here. Now, as we go through this, the next step to fear is next step after fear is going to be the internal conflict stage. Maybe this comes the other way around for you, doesn't matter. All of the information is still going to be valid. The internal conflict stage is going to be all of the struggle where you're deciding, does this particular strategy, you're not afraid of the movements that are happening, you're not afraid of the monetary size, you've moved beyond that at this point in the stage, but instead you're trying to decide, does this agree with what I'm looking to, achieve? Does this make sense according to my trading plan? The little battles that you start to argue with yourself, saying, "Oh, we can justify this." In my head, it might sound like, "Chris, it's okay to take this. You've seen this set up 1,000 times before. You know what's going to happen, or at least you think you know." And it's okay to deviate just a little bit, to just tune that trading plan just slightly to accept that. That represents the internal conflict. When you start to feel those, those thoughts happening, at least being aware that they do happen is step one to being able to identify that internal conflict stage. The second step is being able to get him under control. It is good to ask yourself questions. It is good to challenge your thoughts. But what you don't want is a stalemate. You don't want this weird battle of the bulge. You don't want this situation where you're finding yourself spending, 5 minutes, which is a very long time in the trading world, of course, 5 minutes arguing whether or not you should be doing something. If you find yourself arguing in your head that long about whether or not you should be doing something, chances are you probably shouldn't be doing it. And that's in some people's mind a cop out answer. It seems too simple, but it doesn't have to be complicated to have value. And for some reason in the trading world, that's a common theme I see is traders are constantly trying to find the more complicated process because inherently, if it costs more, it must be better. But that couldn't be farther from the truth. In the beginning of my trading career, I had these internal conflicts all the time with my trading execution. I had conflicts where I was always telling myself, "Oh, I can justify this position because it's, it's I know what's going to happen." And there was a very arrogant way to trade, and it cost me many of times. Does sometimes it work in my did it work in my favor? Sure, but what is important to understand is I went through this internal conflict stage where I would find that something didn't work. I'd look for immediate gratification and I would want to find a strategy that solves the problem that I just encountered. And generally speaking, the problem I just encountered wasn't necessarily the trade strategy I had been utilizing. It was the lack of recognition of that internal conflict to begin with. And what happened is instead of just noticing that in that first 5 minutes, having that critical thinking mind, having that ability to recognize that this is potentially a nuisance if I'm not controlling it, I went off down a rabbit hole and I started looking for different trading strategies, different indicators, you name it. You've probably been there with me. It's we probably talked on a forum once or twice trying to find the holy grail instead of doing things the correct way. And the first process of doing things the correct way is understanding the rules of the game and understanding the current parameters. The current parameters in this case are internal conflict, fear, and that's as far as we've gotten at this point. But the internal conflict and fear, had I been able to recognize those and not been so manly to say, "Oh, I'm not afraid of this trade. I don't care what it's trading money. I already decided it didn't matter if I lose it." If I was quicker to understand that that is going to be there, accept that it's going to be there, but use it to my advantage, I'd be a lot better off. The internal conflict stage is something that we all struggle with, and maybe the way I'm wording it resonates with you and maybe it doesn't resonate with someone else, but it is something that I feel I've never met a trader who's truthfully been able to admit that they haven't been impacted by either of these two things, the fear or the internal conflict stage. And after the internal conflict stage, another common thing that we run into is the discipline stage. And we've got little Timmy here being scolded, even though that looks like a banana. Might possibly be, I don't know. So discipline is something that is probably one of the biggest weaknesses in most traders and that are in the beginning stage of their career, and it's something that continues to plague traders that are past that 5-year mark. Discipline is something that includes things like, okay, this is my trading plan, this is how I'm going to execute when I get in for my long, this is how I'm going to execute when I get in for my short, these are the prerequisites that need to be met in order for me to execute, but I'm going beyond that. So when we bring into the table those first two things that we talked about, the things triggered by fear and by that internal conflict where we start to go around, that all parlays into lack of discipline. Discipline is something that wears many faces, but the quicker you get at recognizing how you personally display discipline leaks, we should say, the how if you're able to quickly recognize that you're exhibiting your lack of discipline, you're exhibiting what to you personally is a discipline flaw. The quicker you're able to recognize that, the quicker you're able to nip it in the butt and correct that behavior. All of these behaviors can have multiple paths to a successful correction. So, the most important, the highest leverage that we can apply on these things is being aware of them. The biggest aspect that is the easiest thing in the world to do is to first recognize the fear, first recognize the internal conflict when it is actually happening. Don't cater to it, don't justify it. Instead, recognize it, and then you can control it for your your betterment. And the discipline will kind of encompass those two things. So you have the discipline to say, I will only execute with this exact trading plan. Maybe you are this just army ranger in the trading world. I was not. I was not an army ranger in the trading world. There was so many times where in the beginning of my trading career, if something exhibited just what I considered to be an astronomical pop one way or the other. If the market just was extremely volatile and we had a hard swing from maybe FOMC or any of the news releases that I'm sure all of you guys have seen, some very drastic short term events, my brain was, it's a rubber band. I don't know who put that into my head. I don't know who told me that the market operates like a rubber band, that every time that something moves far enough beyond the standard deviation, it has to snap back down. it's the most it's the most absurd theory if you run that concept in just a blanket way. And there was times where I was finding myself catering to it so much that I was in fact looking at that really in retrospect in a blanket way, where anytime the market would extend, all of a sudden I would make this rule set, even though it didn't jive with the particular trading set that I had in place. I was executing. I was buying because the market had just dropped 40 points in a matter of 2 minutes. It's got to snap back. There's got to be a pullback. And I can't tell you guys how many times that just did not work out in my favor. But for some reason, those aren't the memories or the feelings that took hold. Instead, it was the gratification from when it did go in my favor that further propelled me to do those things again. When the market would spike 30, 40 points in a very short period of time, and I wanted to snap back. I wanted to ride right on back to that standard deviation. I wanted, or to that average, that historical average. I wanted to come back to that mean. I would feel like I was the wizard. I would feel like I had just got the cleanest kill. Like if we were hunting, or if there's someone in here, then PETA, don't shoot me. But no pun intended. But I would feel so proud of myself when those things would happen that I would forget the 3 other times that it didn't happen. So I could have saved myself a lot of money and a lot of time by just recognizing that I was exhibiting signs of lack of discipline. I was exhibiting signs of lack of discipline. I was exhibiting signs of somebody that was afraid to execute, or executing because I was afraid I was going to miss out. I was exhibiting signs of somebody that had just a continuous internal monologue, which we all should have, but one that had become very conflicting at times. Instead of working together, instead of the different voices in my head, and I promise I'm not schizophrenic, but instead of having these different voices in my head working to find a common solution, they were actually working against themselves. They were actually working against themselves because one of them was saying, oh, you should buy. The other one saying you shouldn't buy. You're never going to get anywhere if you have one voice pulling this way, you have another voice pulling the other way. And instead of putting those two voices together and saying, I understand that I'm having an internal conflict. What are the reasons that I want to buy? Okay. Now, what are the reasons that favor not buying? Okay. Now that we have those two things written out, we have healthily found a way to mesh those, and we can weigh which side of the coin probably makes more sense. I wasn't doing it that way. I was doing it like it was this gladiatorial battle where one side had to win. There had to be a clear, decisive winner as to which voice was right. which voice is better, and not the fact that both sides might have something valuable to add to the table. So being able to recognize those internal conflicts, those fears, that all compiles in to doing it on a regular basis, which then gives you discipline. If you have the discipline to adhere to the and recognize these different things that we're talking about, you're going to find that all of a sudden, without changing anything, your results will probably, what I'll say is they'll probably look a little different. That's what we'll say, just to make sure the SEC doesn't get too angry at me, but it is something that I can report cleanly made a drastic beneficial effect on my personal trading career. It's something that helped me tremendously. So it's something I thought I would share with you. And it's something that I don't see enough of on any forums. I see a lot of people focusing on the minutia, the small deals, the small details, the small areas, instead of understanding. If you understand how to think as a trader, if you understand how to recognize how you're thinking, if you understand how to interpret those voices upstairs and use them to your advantage, if you understand how to do that, well, then you're already leaps and bounds. And honestly, guys, years ahead of the mental trading curve. The biggest struggle with trading isn't knowing what a pin bar is. It's not knowing what a harami is. That's not gonna that's a factual occurrence. That is something that people have identified as a historical depiction. It's something that occurs in price action, but knowing that alone is not going to get you profit. No, it's going to get you profit and it's going to get you losses. What's going to really leverage how much you're getting profit, how much you're getting losses, is your ability to think in an algorithmic way. Your ability to think and analyze the things that you're saying in a way that allow you to use everything that is provided to you when it comes upstairs as a facet, as a vehicle to get to a better place. Instead of constantly having that self-hatred that comes up because you are having some type of fear, instead of having that self-hatred that comes up because you are having some type of internal conflict, and now you have this subconscious feeling like, oh, I'm not cut out for this. I'm not good enough. My wife's gonna hate me if she finds out that I lost, or I'm not exceeding at the rate I want to succeed. Instead of focusing on those details, why not understand and recognize those details? Understand that your fear, that your self conflict, that your discipline are suffering. Understand those things, but give yourself a way to improve those things so you're not continuously putting that hand on the stove. Every time that you put that hand on the stove, it's going to be hot, right? So stop doing it. That doesn't mean you don't have to trade. That means that you need to find a way to correct the mental processes that are your biggest weakness that you're not even seeing to begin with, because chances are you're blaming it on the strategy itself, when in reality, it's probably a mental leak, not the strategy. Chances are a lot of those losses are coming from psychological weaknesses, and being weak doesn't mean anything negatively. And if we stop thinking of ourselves and hating ourselves for thinking of ourselves as weak, instead of we could think of ourselves as we have all kinds of room where we get stronger, your world will change, your trading world will change, your the way you think about trading will change, the way that you produce results will change. All of these things will come in place, and this isn't just some random Tony Robbins seminar. This is a real guy that's been through the ringer, that's lost money and lost a lot of money before I was finally actually making that money, before I was finally able to consistently be over that 51% curve. And I mean that obviously the 51% hypothetically I'm talking about, but where I was consistently coming out as the victor, as what I had previously labeled that as what a victor in trading would be. And the only way I was able to actually get there was by recognizing that it wasn't all of the things that were immediately in front of my face, and taking a step back and realizing that there was a lot of other stuff going on upstairs that was allowing my results to be skewed, allowing my journal entries even to be skewed. And that's something else that I want to talk about. Let's switch over here to the next thing. So the road to success. So when we are trying to improve, the number one thing everyone will tell you, and I'll tell you it, is to journal your entries, to journal your trades, to journal everything that you can possibly handle journaling, because the more that you write down, the more you have to compare data to in the future. And when I say data, I mean your trades, I mean your trading process in terms of your growth as a trader, all of these different things. Journaling is extremely important, but journaling, if you're just reporting back, doesn't change anything. If you're a clown, think of it like this. I like analogies. If you're a clown and you're bouncing on a ball, okay? You're bouncing on a ball. You're just sitting there like a clown bouncing on a ball. And then you add a megaphone and you just start reporting, like journaling to everybody. Hey, I'm a clown. I'm bouncing on a ball. What's going to change? If that's all you're doing, nothing. If you're taking the time to assess the issues that are causing you to make those errors mentally, that's when you're going to start to see large changes instead of just minute character changes. The majority of the time when I was losing personally, I can't speak for everybody else out there, but the majority of the time that I ended up finding out that I was failing ended up coming back down to mental leaks that I wasn't even aware and weren't even in my initial journaling aspect. Every time I took a trade, I would journal it. I would say, okay, I took this trade. This adheres to the setup, but I never took note of where I was at mentally when I took that trade. Never did. And when I started to take note of how I was when I was executing on this black and white, kind of algorithmic road, I all of a sudden realized that it wasn't so black and white anymore. There was trades that I was taking that were taken while I was on top of the world, while I was feeling confident. There was trades that I was taking where I was wavering. My confidence was, a little bit shaky. There was trades that I was taking where I was afraid, but I took it anyway. There was trades that I was taking where there was FOMO involved. Now, all of those trades now all of a sudden don't look the same. They don't look like they're in the same category anymore because they weren't. But before that, when I was journaling, just putting in entries into the machine saying, oh, this adhered to system A, hypothetically, none of that was ever relevant, which means I have no way to improve it. And it's just like every path to recovery or every path to success in every type of rehabilitation program you've ever heard about. The first step to correcting a problem is recognizing there is one. If you are journaling and you can't figure out what the problem is, you're not writing everything down. You're missing variables. So instead of being mad or instead of being upset and frustrated with yourself, understand this stuff isn't easy, folks. It's not easy. Trading isn't for everybody because it is stressful. It does require work. But I think if you have any kind of tenacity in your bones, you have any kind of desire to pursue and solve something, if you hold on to that and you hold on to those the mental health aspects that will allow you to stay mentally healthy, I believe just about anybody can successfully beat the system. But it's just like anything in life, running a marathon. Most people, this is probably a terrible analogy, so you can shoot me on this one, guys, but most people, I believe, if there's no physical ailments preventing them, like such as bad knees, et cetera, that's why I said this is a terrible analogy. Most people can train to get to the point where they can do that. Trading is very similar in that regard, but honestly, probably easier than most people that are, inhibited by, like I said, I should have never gone that route with that physical ability, but or that analogy. But regardless, yeah, it is one of those things where if you try hard enough and you're determined, and you don't just tell yourself that you're determined, you don't just tell yourself that, oh, I put in 1,000 hours, I'm deserving. What does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. It's how you spend those times. How highly leveraged have you spent those 1,000 hours? Did you spend 1,000 hours writing down the same information over and over again and expect something to magically change for you? Or did you spend those 1,000 hours constantly challenging yourself to understand how you were thinking in those aspects? How were you thinking during those trades that affected potentially the outcome of doing something at a consistent rate, but not getting consistent results? If you're getting consistent results, then you have a consistent input. If you're not getting consistent results, even if A plus B equals C in terms of what it's going to take for you to enter, there is something missing. And chances are it's the psychological battle. It's the psychological aspect. That is really the core of what I wanted to bring to you guys. It's the core of what I wanted to talk about, due to the fact that a lot of people don't care to share what it is actually like to be a trader. They don't care to tell you that it's not all fun and games, that it's not easy, or if they are telling you it, they're trying to sell you something. I'm not selling you anything. I'm just sharing success, because at the end of the day, if one person gains from this, I've done my job. I've helped one person potentially skip ahead of the road farther and faster than it took me to do it. Like I said, it took me about 3 to 4 years realistically to get to where I wanted to go. And I don't mean just profitable. I just mean 3 to 4 years to be where I wanted to be in my head. And a lot of people will tell you, oh, you can be a trader in 3 months. You can be a trader. Yes, you can. It is possible. It's not the average curve. But what it matters is, have you talked to people that have been there, done that, to accelerate some of those problems, or to accelerate some of that learning curve? If you do, if you have someone that's been there, yes, it is possible to figure trading out, guys. It is possible to do all of these things. If you're on a great forum like Futures.io, if you're talking to people, if you're giving yourself new perspectives behind a way to think about the problem, you're going to get there quicker. And that's really what I wanted to present to you guys: a new perspective, hopefully a new way to think about things, and to stop thinking about things so analytically, even though we are trained as traders to be algorithmic and analytical with everything that we think about. But instead, take one step further back, and instead of just being an operator that's just shifting the gears, red button, blue button, red button, blue button, instead take one step further back and understand that all of that stimulus that's coming into your brain and that's coming out the other end when you're having those internal monologues, if you take one step further back to just take a little bit of extra energy to analyze what type of what type of energy is coming off of that stimulus. Is it something of fear? Is it something of desire? Is it something of, if you take a step back, you'll start to notice that a lot of your trades that you thought you didn't do anything wrong at all were probably avoidable. They were probably not nearly as confusing all of a sudden. It might enlighten and illuminate some of the different areas that you might be struggling with, hopefully. It's something that I could talk about for a very long time. I'd be inclined to hear, you know, Shane, if you don't mind, if you'd like me to open it up for questions, or if you'd like me to keep going, because realistically, guys, we could talk about this stuff. I could keep going for 3, 4, 5 hours easy on this.
Hey, you know what? Totally up to you, man. Just listening to what you had to say, everything is like ringing true, clear as a bell to me. I'm about 4 years in myself, and it's taken a long while to get where I'm at, and it's been a hard fought battle, and you get knocked down and you get back up, and you knock down and you get back up. What Why do you think it's so difficult for people to just step back and view it from an outside perspective? You're talking about operating, pressing the red button and the blue button, that sort of thing. What does it take to step back from that and, actually observe yourself from that perspective as if you were observing somebody else doing it?
Lack of ego. And that's
Um,
something that, as traders, I think all of us are guilty of it. I think there does tend to be this inherent pride and this determination that we as traders exhibit, which are healthy qualities. I think a lot of us exhibit those kind of those driven alpha tendencies, but unfortunately, there does seem to be a correlation mentally with having those aspects and having the inability to step back from your ego and admit wrongdoings, and admit that there might be something mentally that you need to think about. A lot of the times, the people that tend to exhibit these qualities they're not so quick to be accepting of feelings. They're not so quick to be accepting of emotions, because for some reason it's been stapled in our head. I don't know by who. Maybe it's by the Lucky Charms commercial that we saw as a kid. Who knows? But they've been told that if you do this, you're weak, or it's a waste of your time, or instead of playing baseball, now you're a ballerina, or some ridiculous masochistic, weird, just it's that toxic masculinity stuff. I mean, that's really what it is. I feel a lot of the times, at least in my experience, it's the inability to step back from your ego, the inability to be okay with recognizing your own flaws, to be okay with recognizing that you're not where you want to be. But to get to where you want to be, you have to recognize that you're not where you want to be. And that's okay. And if you just take that weight off your shoulders and understand that, guys, I don't know a trader in my life that just started out and was just poof, success. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And if someone tells you that happens, send them to me because I'll call them on their bullshit. It's not, but anyway.
Interesting. Oh, by the way, audience, if you have questions, go ahead, type them into the Q&A box. We'll get you right up. Have you ever videoed yourself trading? I mean, not just taking a screenshot, but like had to set up a camera outside so it could capture you actually trading, just to see, if you could kind of tie that to, what were you feeling at that point in time, or, and
Okay, it's funny you asked that. So that is not something I had done until relatively recently. And that is a phenomenal way. It's just another facet. There's more than one way to do things, but it's a phenomenal way to read your face, because you know yourself better than anyone. Be like, oh man, you could see the frustration in my forehead. You could see the frustration. You could see the anger. You could see the happiness. You could see the greed. You could see the times where that twinkle was in my eye, and that is an excellent addition. So I'm glad that you said that. I don't think that many people will have the willpower to film themselves while trading, but because to be honest, guys, I'm one of those people. I don't like to film myself. I'm not someone that actually likes to be on camera, believe it or not. I was talking with Shane before we launched today, talking about how, it's intimidating, but what was I doing by acknowledging that? I was recognizing that I have a fear, and then I can work forward from it. I can recognize that it's there, and then I don't have to have this irrational thought in my head that it can't be there. So, when you film yourself, I think that could provide some very cool insight into how you're operating at those moments when you're executing. And it could also be funny, years down the road, to have a little, some compilations of, have
Chris's
the
greatest
market.
hits.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, in this case, Shane's, you're doing it. Yeah. So
Oh, that's a
yeah,
blooper reel, man.
exactly. Yeah. Oh, we got some questions here. Look at this. I love it. Yeah, guys, keep the questions coming if you so choose. Let's see what we got here.
Yeah, Bantasia would like to know if you could give an example of how you flipped your thinking from that of fear to observation, uh, or something that you found needed to change, and how you substituted or merged your thoughts.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that actually kind of ties into, I mean, that's perfect. I mean, that really ties into what we were talking about, honestly, with the camera aspect and me being afraid of, being on camera is something I don't enjoy, even though I do it on a daily basis. It's just something I inherently am not a fan of. So the first process to flipping that thought process, and I just want to pull that question up to make sure I stay on track with it. The first process to flipping from, fear to observation quite literally is the observation of that emotion. So the very first thing that we do is recognize, what is that weird feeling? Where is that weird feeling coming from? So just like if you're having a headache, a headache's easy to recognize because it's a physical sensation, it's physical pain, and we're trained to recognize physical sensations much faster than we're trained to recognize, our mental state and our mental health area. And it's sad, the general schooling system doesn't go on there, but that's a whole nother story. So the first step is recognize it. So recognize the fears there. After you recognize the fears there, logically think about it just for a moment and say, well, why am I afraid? And then you'll get a quick answer in your head. This is all done usually within a very, almost like a second's time span, because our brains operate, they're wonderful things. So recognize it's there, and then ask yourself why it's there. When you understand why it's there, then that usually leads to understanding that it's more so a reaction that's based less in logic, and it's based more in a kind of subliminal, deep rooted process, because it's always been there because you've never addressed it, you've never recognized it, you've never actually dealt with it in the past. So as you continuously do this, as you continuously recognize fear each and every time that you're there, as you continuously observe that you're being, someone that's being affected by any of these negative emotions for that matter, what will happen is you'll get quicker at going through that process, just like muscle memory, just like catching a ball or anything else. You'll get to the process where you're like, boom, negative emotion, boom, why is it there? You'll get through that quicker instead of thinking, oh, what did Chris say? I have to ask why it's there. Okay. So you'll be like, boom, why is it there? Boom, why is it there? Oh, I just repeated myself. Sorry, guys. But you'll get to the process where it just becomes your healthy way of thinking, just like maybe holding your shoulders back when you walk. At first it might feel odd, but as you do it, you're going to build up the muscles to hold yourself that way. Your brain is going to work the same way psychologically. As you get used to regularly observing those things that are coming in, whether they're positive or negative for that matter, and being able to ask why it's there and then dismantle it further from that point, it'll become a subconscious process that you'll do without having to spend as much effort or mental energy in analyzing it. So the first step, observe, recognize that it's there, welcome it. Don't ever challenge it. That's important. Don't ever challenge it. If you're afraid, don't tell yourself you shouldn't be afraid. You're just compounding your problems at that point. You're lying to yourself. It is there. Accept that it's there. So move on from it. It's there. Why is it there? Okay, this is why it's here. Now, does this actually make sense? No. And when you break it down systematically like that, usually what will happen is it'll break it down anyway. It'll be a lot less scary. And then instead of dealing with this gigantic grizzly bear, now you've got a mouse in the kitchen. You recognize you have a mouse in the kitchen. It's all it is. It's just a mouse in the kitchen. It's no big deal.
Yeah, excellent. Real quick here, I saw something pretty interesting. The mailman says
there was some good guys. I don't know. It looks like I lost some of them. Let's see. Yeah, there was some. You guys are coming up with some good stuff, and people are sharing their own admissions of that are kind of reaffirming the things that we talked about here today. And I know you guys can't see it, but those of you that were sharing things, one person was mentioning one of the things that they like to preach to traders is being emotionally detached from their money, and the lack of disconnection will prevent them from being a successful trader. Now, I only bring this up because it is good to be detached from the money, but I was not trying to put out that vibe. I'm not trying to train a group of sociopaths. I'm trying to be emotionally aware of what's coming in. So it is good to be detached from the money in terms of not letting it negatively affect you. And that's something I want to clarify. When you see on the forums out there, people say, detach yourself from the money, trade on a demo account until you could trade with your real money account at the same rate without having the same type of hesitation. That's pretty much the only thing that actually applies to, and probably the only thing that I'll advocate, is being detached from that negative attribute that might come with the money. But everything else, we don't want to train ourselves to be so robotic that we don't recognize our emotions and we don't know how to handle them, because that will leave you in that continuously gear spinning state where you're never able to adjust, you're never able to improve, and you don't even realize that half the time that you're losing those positions is because something that you already ruled out ahead of time. So use what am I trying to say here in terms of the word? Use discretion. Use healthy discretion when sociopath. So let's make up a word here. Sociopathicizing your brain.
How about checklists, man? Do you use any type of checklist to assess pre-trade mental conditions, post-trade, any of that?
I'm going to be 100% transparent with you, Shane. That did not process because I just read another question while you were reading that. So run that by me one more time if you don't mind.
The question was about having a pre-trade mental condition checklist.
Exactly.
How do you check in with yourself and make sure that you're on the right page, or am I not in the proper mental condition to be trading at the moment? Which is most of the time for me.
Absolutely, 100%. If you can get to the point where you have that pre-trade mental health check-in process and you run into a wall, technically the correct thing would be don't trade. And that's where the discipline aspect of it comes in, because most people will get to a point where they're like, I got like a 69. I'm not totally passing here, but I'm mostly passing, I guess. So let's trade anyway. That's where the discipline comes in, and knowing and having the ability to abstain from executing unless you're in that proper mindset is a very long a very long road sometimes for traders. At least it was for me personally. It took a while to become mentally, sound enough to where I can do these things without having to think too much about it.
Right. How do you convince people? I mean, obviously you talk with a lot of traders and you mentor and you guide people. How do you convince people to focus on looking inward instead of trying to find the next indicator system, that sort of thing? How do you convince them that maybe the problem actually is something they need to turn within to look at?
That's an excellent question. So that is something that I am currently attempting to do right now. That is something that that's where I'm at in my career, if you will, is I'm at the point now where I'm trying to find the healthiest way to break through to people in a way that resonates with them, and find something that can show them the significance, the importance, and the weight of paying attention to the internal monologue, the internal emotions and aspects that they might be struggling. And it is something that I'm currently personally still working on. I'm still trying to find the most efficient way to communicate with the traders and communicate to them in a way that they respect and value the information. So I'm open to criticism in that area. I'm always open to criticism in that area. Is it important for me? Absolutely. And it was something that changed my trading career. So I don't have to convince myself because I already know. But to convince other people, you can't really force anybody to believe anything that they don't want to believe anyway. So it's more or less, I try to, where I'm at this stage of my career is trying to share the information in a very open and honest form and allow them to do with it what they will.
It really is kind of like a continual growth process.
Hmm.
I mean, even coming those words coming from you with your experience in the industry, and still constantly having to reevaluate your own tactics and the way that you approach things, and then hopefully being able to take that information and then disseminate it to people that could benefit from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, I think this is a good one here. FIO member Mailmon wants to ask, uh, and I think it's a very valid question. Since we're here talking about it, a prop firm like Earn to Trade, how is it possible that that could help relieve the fear of losing an entire trading account while they're learning? Do you think it's better to for them to make all those mistakes on their own first before they commit to doing a prop firm endeavor?
That's a phenomenal question.
Right.
And guys, I appreciate you bringing up, where I'm from, my home area, because this, I haven't brought it up at all. I don't think myself, so Earn to Trade, if you guys don't know, we are a prop firm. What does that mean? It means that we provide an evaluation that if you're good enough, we will connect you to a funding source for your trading. In short, that means if you're good enough, if you pass the test, you have the opportunity to become a professional funded trader with an 80-20 split, on the profit side of things. You get 80%, the firm would get 20. So there is an argument to be made for both sides of the coin to whether or not you should be totally prepared before you begin or if you should begin there first. And this is one that I have kind of thought a lot about. And I don't think that, and it's a good answer. I don't think that there's a wrong I don't think that there's a wrong way to do it. I don't think there's a wrong way to do it because there's a lot of value in a trader diving into an evaluation like Earn to Trade, diving into an evaluation and pursuing the Gauntlet Mini Challenge. There's a lot of value that you can gain from doing that, even if you fail. There's a lot of value because you'll get those feelings of what it's like to trade with a real account, what it's like to trade with actual rules, what it's like to be an actual professional trader. You'll gain all of that experience. And maybe that allows you to know if it's something you do want to pursue or not pursue. So, in that essence, I usually lean more towards there is no the right time is when you want to do it. And it's definitely not wrong to do it with no experience because we actually have a lot of education. Here you go, right? I focus strongly on trying to enlighten areas technical areas as well, a lot of things on indicators, a lot of things on strategies, and etc. So there's a lot of information there to help new traders, and the experience gained from it, I think, can save you a lot of time if you end up doing it and deciding that trading isn't for you. Or it could be the opposite. You could do it and decide that, okay, this is definitely something I want to do, and that will give you the motivation to work through those struggles instead of doing it based on, some like me right now saying, oh, it's worth it in the end. It doesn't mean anything to you, but if you get a taste of the pie, it can allow you to make a more informed decision. So, and the cost factor, relatively speaking, is extremely low. I mean, it really is, in today's day and age too. I mean, take your stimulus check, right? You could do it 1,000 times, but it's, that was a joke, guys, but it's I strongly recommend, I strongly recommend not overthinking it. And if you are a new trader and you want to know what it tastes like, yeah, it's a great way to do it, because your risk is capped, guys. Your risk is capped, and it's capped a hell of a lot lower than if you just open a live trading account yourself and fund it. And you might not think so, because you might open a live trading account with, say, $300, trade the the MES or something. But what happens, guys? I'll tell you what happens. Traders go ahead, they wipe that 300, and they're like, we'll just put another 300 in.
Just toss
We'll
it in
put
there,
another
man.
300 in. It happens. So I think, Earn a Trade is a phenomenal place for you to get a taste of the pie. And I'm not just saying that, guys. My whole persona is more important to me than any one company. I love Earn a Trade because they support me being honest. So if you are new and you want to get a taste of the pie, yeah, Earn a Trade is a phenomenal place to go and keep your risk as low. I can't genuinely think of a better route to go if you're trying to get a taste of the pie while keeping your risk minimal. I can't. It just, aside from trading on a demo account, but it's not nearly going to provide you any of the things I mentioned, what it's like to trade with a rule set, what it's like to be a professional trader. It's not going to provide any of that. So yeah, Earn a Trade is good for anybody, but especially new people, because it could save you years of your life. So
It is pretty interesting, because if you're doing it by yourself, then not only do you have to, be the trader and managing your trades, handling all that other stuff, plus everything we've talked about here today, but there's nobody looking over your shoulder saying, "Hey, man, you're gonna tilt, you're gonna blow up, we're gonna pull the plug right now." You don't have that supervision. I mean, as an independent, you have to assume that role yourself, and a lot of people don't think about it from that perspective.
exactly, absolutely, yeah, that's a great way to say it. Someone said, when you film yourself, do you ever break through the fourth wall?
I was wondering what that meant. I was gonna ask.
Oh, we got to the execute stage. That's one that didn't make it. Yeah, there's your fourth wall. But that's just a joke. Yeah, it's a joke. So yeah, just break. Yeah, I'm not even going to go into that one. That's a good question. It's a good question. We'll leave that one in mystery land.
Next
Yeah.
webinar, right?
Yeah, next webinar,
stay,
breaking the fourth wall.
stay tuned, folks.
Yeah.
Cool, man. I thought it was fantastic. What an awesome presentation. I really love webinars like that, like this, that, that focus on traders looking within. And, because really, I think that's where most of the answers are. If you've got a technique, or if you've got a method, and theoretically, if your expectancy is good, then the only thing that's really holding yourself back is yourself.
Exactly. And someone asked a question that I did want to make sure I got into. Someone that just asked, they said, is it possible I can pass the test if I'm a Forex trader? Yes, but you would be trading Forex futures. So, I mean, the nuances between Forex and Forex futures, I started on Forex, guys. It was not that hard to switch to futures. A candlestick is a candlestick, guys.
You're talking about like something like M6E or something like that. Forex
Exactly.
is right. I got you.
Exactly.
That's where I started too. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff, man. What else? You see anything else here that we got to address?
Oh man, there's so much good stuff. What I do appreciate, guys, and I'm just gonna there's no way I'm gonna be able to go through all of this, of course, but those of you that were sharing your own stories, I appreciate that, and I am reading them. I'll just share one for an example, and I'll keep you anonymous. Someone said that what hurt me early on in trading is the condition whereby I would trade very judiciously one day and achieve an 80% win rate. Then I would kick myself mentally, saying I could have made much more money had I traded more frequently. Then the next day, I would trade like a madman and drop to a 35% win rate. The problem was cutting my few winners short, which kept me from overcoming all of those frequent losses. And guys, that is as real as it gets. I think all of us have been there. All of us experience that stuff. So those of you that are sharing stories like that, I appreciate it. And I just wanted to make sure that I shared one of your stories instead of just one of mine. So the rest of you guys that are sitting here know that, that's one of you guys. That's one of you in the audience sharing stuff like that. It's very commonplace for you guys to experience these type of things. So just know that you're not alone, and know that you are not weak for being able to realize the things that you're feeling, and you're not weak for addressing them. That makes you stronger. The person that's like, oh, it makes you weak, that's the weak person, because that represents somebody that's massively handicapped mentally, you know. But
this is what I like about
yeah.
this is what I like about trading, is it's just a constant process. No matter where you're at in the game, it's there's always something to learn and always something to experience.
Yeah. For what is meant for buy trader? I don't fully understand that question there. Someone asked a question about joining InterTrade with no experience, but I don't. Do you already have to? No, you don't. I think they're asking, do you have to already have? So what I'm trying to explain is, guys, the way Earn to Trade operates, just so I may have added some confusion because I went off the wing there, so I apologize. Earn to Trade is meant to be a place that is accessible for any talent group. And the reason is because if you're an experienced trader, you already know what you're doing, you're just looking to pass the test to get funded. Well, guess what? You don't need any of the education. You just need the test. They've got that. If you're a trader that has no experience and you're looking to learn, well, guess what? They have more education than probably any other prop, style evaluation on the planet, quite literally. So you've got the education, you've got mentoring. That's where I come in, right? You and I hang out and we talk, and I tell you where things can improve and where things might not be, and I share strategies that work for me. So it's good for any age range, and I don't think I was clear enough with that, or age range, any experience range, right? By all means, please God, do not come to Earn to Trade if you're under the age of 18. That'd be strange. but no, it's good for any level of experience, because even if you fail, say you're a brand new trader, and it's likely that you aren't going to, figure it out because you don't have the time to take it seriously, you still might then, even that kind of person would find value because they would get a taste of the pie. So there's value. Anyone that comes is going to get value. There's no discrimination there. That's the whole concept of why we focus so much on education. So it wasn't just catering to traders that are just coming to get a gigantic $150,000 bag of cash.
Let's see here. Sitting Bull wants to know if once they pass the evaluation and have a funded account, they have to pay professional fees to CME. Does that mean that they'll also have to pay those fees on their personal trading account?
Wait, run that by me one more time.
Yeah, let me read that again here.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull it up too. Who asked it? I'll pull it up so I can.
It's Sitting Bull.
Sitting Bull. Let me find it. Okay, I see it. I see it. Once you pass, yes, it's just the same as being a trader. Those aren't our fees. You're paying the CME. Take that one up with the CME, guys. Good luck. That's the fees are not that high. The fees are minuscule. And actually, while you're with Earn to Trade to begin with, and the beginning stages, there's all kinds of cool things that you'll learn about, like where the fees are already taken care of for you, included. So, yeah.
Excellent.
I'm not the InterTrade salesman, guys. I promise you that. I'm there for education and for trading and what have you. That's what they have me there for. I am not involved in marketing by any way, shape, or form. As you might tell, my openness and transparency generally isn't conducive to that type of thing. But I personally think that I'd rather you guys know exactly what it is and make it an informed decision than not. So.
Well, absolutely, man. We appreciate all that for sure. And I want to appreciate it. I really appreciate you having you here today, man. Thank you for joining us, Chris. It's been an eye-opening experience. I really do appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad I got to be part of the eye-opening experience at IO. Right. But yeah, I thank you for having me as well. And I thank you guys all for joining, and hopefully I'll see all of you souls that end up bopping over to Earn a Trade, and I'll see you there. I'll see you there or here on the Futures IO forum, one way or the other. But those of you that do take the Gauntlet Mini, good luck. It's not nearly as impossible as you might think. You can do it. Just remember the stuff that we talked about.
Right on, man. All right. Well, folks, I think that's going to wrap it up. Don't forget to visit our YouTube channel, please, for more quality trading videos. And while you're there, please like, share, and subscribe. Again, I thank you for joining us and trade well.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Cheers.
Take care, Chris.
You too.